Okay. All right, folks, it's not very often, sadly, that I get to do somebody local, which makes me sad. So that's part of the reason why doing this interview today was so very important. Fernando is a Wauwatosa resident. I happen to be in Wisconsin myself. Please introduce yourself to everyone, please.
Hi, my name is Fernando Topete. I'm the owner of Nuvigate, which is an IT managed service provider based out of
Mhm.
Wauwatosa.
Yes.
We're one of the small companies out here that are actually in full-on AI development. We're one of a small handful, and we are pioneering in that field.
Okay. Now, doing my research, I found out that you're formerly from Chicago. Is that correct?
Correct?
Okay, so it must be an adjustment because I know I go to New York all the time and people compare Chicago to New York. So I'm like, imagine going from Chicago to Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Why did you move?
So I grew up in Chicago, and I love it there for the most part, except the violence has just gotten too out of hand.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple of situations where people were killed not too far from my home. So
Gosh.
at that point, my wife and I decided that we just needed a new start somewhere else that's a little more compatible with our lifestyles. So we moved to Wauwatosa on my cousin's opinion since he lived down the street from me. So no, since then he's moved to Oconomowoc, but we're still here.
Nice. So that begs to ask the question. I've been asking Wauwatosa residents, and it's been in the news a lot, of course, about assessments and prices going up in the school district, et cetera. So, what is your take on it? You're in that actual community. How concerned are you not only about the financial side of things, but also educational?
I'm actually sort of miffed, to be quite honest. One of the reasons we moved out here was because I knew I'd end up paying more for property taxes, but the amenities would be worthwhile. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't have to send my kids to private school. Unfortunately, in the last few years, Underwood Elementary's scores have gone down drastically, while what we're paying for the schools has gone up significantly.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of a struggle that we've been dealing with. And it's not only me, but
Yeah.
it's been a lot of other people that I've had conversations with, specifically other parents who
Hmm.
own homes, are feeling the same sort of burn that I am, where we're
Yeah.
just paying out the nose and we're not getting the amenities back that we should be.
Hmm. Okay. One more question relative to the TOSA thing. As far as the school system goes, I know that there's been talk about closing schools, changing things, downsizing with staff, etc. Um, have you attended these meetings or have you been active within the talking to the school board, superintendent, that sort of good stuff? Tell us a bit about how you feel about the future of your children's education or children in general, rather.
Well, I'll be quite honest. I have sat through some of these board meetings and I've come out disappointed because of the rhetoric that people are using as to why we're deserving the lower grades. And so the superintendent is new from, but he's from here.
Hmm.
And one of the things that really bothers me, like I married, my wife is half Irish and Swedish. And so when we talk about the grades going down, one of the things that really disturbed me was that we were told that we sort of deserve what's going on because Toast is 85% white and affluent. And my kids are blonde and, they're, they're very light skinned. So when I hear that, it's like, why is this place where we champion diversity all of a sudden having a problem with racism?
Right. That's huge. Good
Yeah.
Lord. And inappropriate. That's
Yeah.
completely out of line.
So I've recorded that. I've even posted that on Twitter
Okay.
because I feel people need to know what's going on here. And I just don't like it. It's frustrating. And I fully believe, like, I come from a background where I was a director of IT for a consortium of 5 grade schools in
Hmm.
Chicago. And so like I would write the grants and stuff, specifically like E-rate, where if we had 95% of our kids were on free lunch programs, we were entitled to the maximum amount of that grant.
Yeah.
And since we opened up 2 new schools while I was there, I was able to get the $5 million every single time I did the grant.
Okay.
And that was amazing. And most of our kids from there have excelled exceedingly well. Well, they'll 95% of our kids will actually finish college. And those are kids that we track from grade school that are come to our schools.
Yeah.
Now we come here and we're paying out the nose in regards to taxes, and we're just seeing everyone fail. That's a huge issue. My kids are exceedingly bright, and it feels like now that they're getting rid of the STEM program,
Mm.
um, everyone's going to be affected very poorly.
Absolutely. You bet. And thank you for sharing that. I think that's important information for the community to know. I studied you, and I note that you have a BA in sociology. For most of you that don't know, that means that he deals a lot in studying human behavior. So, what I'm curious about is if that degree has served you well in the regard of developing a software program such as this, because does that really come into play a great deal?
Well, I needed to do something because I've noticed that the education is lacking. Like one of the things that you and I both grew up with is homework.
Yes.
Yes. Uh, Underwood no longer gives kids homework. So they have no reinforcement on what they're learning anymore because apparently now homework has become, and I hate saying it like this but that's racist now. And I don't understand how that's become racist. Like I'm Mexican American, first
Okay.
generation. My parents were born and raised in Mexico, and we struggled a lot as a kid. And I went to Chicago public schools. I grew up in a household with 8 other people in a one-bedroom apartment, and we tried our hardest to get out of that situation. And we've done well for ourselves. But coming to a more affluent town, where you would think that because you're paying so much in property taxes, you think that the
Yeah.
school system would be better, and it was for a while.
Mhm.
But after we got our new superintendent in, everything changed.
So I guess my question to you is, you used to work previously for the LaSalle Education.
Correct.
So do you see a substantial difference between the educational system over there versus over here?
I do. Specifically, when I work for LaSalle Education Network, you have to understand that when we first started, we were San Miguel schools. And
Hmm.
so we were completely Catholic based until we got
Okay.
a charter. So the only difference in the way that we ran the schools, like we wouldn't call it a job. We called it being part of a mission.
Mhm.
So everyone that we worked with struggled very hard uh, and to spend lots of time and their own money to make sure that those kids that we serviced were doing well.
Mhm.
So, maybe the pay wasn't as good for a lot of those teachers because granted, when we first started, we're all Catholic or
Yeah.
Catholic based,
Yeah.
but they did such an exceedingly well job and they actually cared about those kids. So I don't see that as much here anymore. And I'm seeing like a mass exodus of teachers. It's like, for example, even Underwood now, because of the merging of STEM and the regular school,
Mhm.
a lot of teachers have quit. And now there's no second or third grade teacher. So my kid who's going into second grade right now has no teacher. And
Mm.
that's going to be a fun way to start the fall.
It sounds like it's an incredibly dismal and really discouraging state of education at the moment. Plus, if you take a study in Wisconsin literacy, well, really literacy across the board, really across the United States, things have become far more bleak. The pandemic certainly didn't help that situation, of course. And so, bravo to anyone, including yourself, that's coming together and saying, hey, we need to provide services or options or things that can help our children. That kind of goes without saying. Before we get to Nuvolearn, a couple of different things. As you mentioned, you're the principal of Newbie Gate. And so tell me more about that. What are the main things that you provide through your company?
So we're a 19 managed service provider. At this point now, we pretty much offer everything. So basically, we offer small businesses a chance to actually have a full-fledged IT department
Okay.
without paying the full price of an IT department. So we have engineers that go out and do work for us. We have a help desk that people can call when there's an issue. And then we have a whole back end that we call remote monitoring and management, where we
Okay.
install like a little agent on the computer, and that agent is responsible for cleaning up the computer during downtime and fixing every little issue while things are quiet. So when the person comes into work the next day, their computer just works. If something doesn't work, our service level agreements are pretty good.
Okay.
We usually have pretty much every issue knocked out within the first 15 minutes of it happening. And if there's like a major issue, we usually have boots on the ground. We're having an engineer on site within an hour or two.
Nice. Very nice. So if I were to ask you, the majority of your clients are whom? Are these just regular consumers, corporations? Who do you normally deal with?
Businesses. So we work, our vertical is legal. So we work with a
Okay.
lot of law firms. After I worked for the schools, I worked for Legal Helpers, which was the largest bankruptcy firm in the country.
Ah,
So I
okay.
have a lot of experience in working in large systems.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
that's kind of my target now, and my focus is working with law firms. We'll work with anyone, but because of my experiences, like we're best suited for legal.
Okay. That makes sense. You also are listed as the CEO of Triptych Tech Services. Tell me a bit about that.
So that was what we called Newbigate before it became Newbigate.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
so the reason it changed is because Newbigate is a combination of two words, newbie, which is Latin for cloud,
Mhm.
and the gate. So we're like the gateway to the cloud.
Nice.
And because of all the services nowadays are essentially cloud based, so like Microsoft has Azure, Amazon has AWS, and a lot of businesses like to work with them, so they're not paying for servers on site. We got into that niche as well. So with that, also required a name change because also a lot of people don't know how to spell or write the word triptych.
I get it. That makes sense. Okay. And then one day you went off and decided to develop the excuse me, Nuvolearn. Now, before I start asking about this product, one of the biggest topics that I hear about a lot lately is the integration of AI into anything. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you because you're on the side of the fence that I'm guessing supports the usage of AI. For some of
Yes.
us, of course, that's incredibly risky and scary because why? Well, when you work in the arts, it's very simple to replace us, artists, musicians, writers, things like that. So please tell me a bit about what you feel AI can be in the way of benefits to people so that this way maybe it's not so scary or maybe it's a little more acceptable in society to be using.
So one thing I did bring up earlier was the low test scores that we're seeing at Underwood. And what I've done is we created a LLM, or what's called a large language model, that's specifically been fed with the books that you and I grew up with in the 80s when we went to school.
Okay.
So math, reading, science, spelling, social studies, and such. And so we focus on teaching those core subjects and we stay away from politics. That's the
Mm,
last thing we want to teach kids. And I don't want to have that sort of division between parents and the educational system.
yeah.
So all I'm really focusing on is the things that we focused on as kids because our test scores were better. I feel us as adults are more primed to go out and deal with the real world,
Yeah.
and the kids nowadays aren't.
True. Also, when you think about it, AI usage. So I've seen some of the things, and I guess maybe it's me, and I'd like your take on this too. There's a difference between looking at me in a picture, and then if I take a headshot and it's AI generated, yes, it's close, but you're really not getting the core of what you need. Whereas I'm assuming if you use AI type software, if you want to call it that, and you're integrating it into a program such as this, what's the big difference between what we see generated versus using it in something like a software?
So with what the software that we're using takes away the generality of it because
Okay.
we have it fine tuned specifically only for education. Like for example, on Nuvolearn itself, there is an AI that lives there, and it's Owly the Owl. And Owly the Owl is a little button on the bottom right that while you're working on the way we have it structured is I have it so it teaches you half an hour of curriculum a day. So you can sit
Okay.
there and just go work through it at your time, however you want. But it's really meant if your kid is on the level, he or she should be able to complete most of the tasks within a half hour. I mean, they're
Okay.
not timed or anything, so it can take as long as they want. But Owly the Owl exists there solely to help the child with the problem that they're having currently on the screen. So they have like if you're in third grade and you're working on division and you're having a hard time, you can click on Owly and Owly will say, well, let me help you on doing on this specific problem and I'll work with
Yeah.
you on the steps and getting it done. And so we have it fine tuned that way. And we keep it because of our tuning, we keep it from going off the rails. And that's another problem. I don't know if you heard of hallucinations. Like if you talk to an AI about something, it'll sometimes just start rambling. So
Okay.
we've gotten away with that by doing the fine tuning through the LLM. So it
Okay.
only focuses specifically on the task at hand.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes more sense to me then. Okay. If I were to ask you to explain Nouveau Learn, what specifically is it designed to do?
It essentially gives your kids homework. It reinforces learning when you go through the lesson because the lesson will, you can either have it read out or you can read it yourself. There's a little button, and I also actually built in bilingual function. So if you have a kids who have come in, you
Nice.
can hit the Spanish button, then the things are in Spanish. But the idea is because the kids aren't getting homework at school right now, and a lot of the stuff that they're teaching at the school is politically charged, I really wanted to get away with that from that and kind of go back to the same curriculum that we were using when I was working at the schools. And that's really focused on reading, writing, math, science, social studies, and spelling. And that's another thing. Like, for example, when I was a kid, we'd be given a list of words and we have to read them every day and write them
Hmm.
down every day. And then
Yep.
on Friday, you have to take a spelling test. So they haven't done that at Underwood in years. So my kids are like the worst spellers.
Oh no.
Yeah, and that's a problem for me because like that was a nerdy kid that would win the spelling bee every year in my grade school. So
Wait.
it's really weird to see my kids have a struggle with that because it's something they shouldn't have a problem with. But
No,
it's
I
because
agree.
they just don't have it. They're not exposed to it anymore. So the idea with Nuvolearn is that all the stuff that was able to make me a successful person, I've incorporated into this, and I've taken all the bias out.
Now, if I were to say to you, I noticed that you have five core subjects. I'm assuming that these are the five same subjects that the schools themselves say these are your five cores as far as that stuff goes. And I'm assuming that's why that's based on that.
Yes, for the most part, except for spelling. I added it there because they don't teach spelling in schools anymore.
That is wild. I can't even believe that concept. My God. I noticed also that this is catered to kindergarten through eighth grade. So my
Correct.
question to you was there a reason you didn't do high school or college, or is that something that's going in the future? Or
Well, I wanted to focus on kids first because kids' minds are much more malleable. So the idea is if I can get them to, to work on their level, I think they'll have a much better shot at excelling in high school and in college.
okay,
I think
gotcha.
that that's the prime point of learning is when you're young, and everything else is really just expanding on it. Like even for example, for college, because I have a sociology degree,
Mhm.
like a lot of the stuff that I went to school for, I'll be honest with you, like it's sort of useless for me, especially in what I do, because a lot of it, the way I see college for the most part, is that it's a place where like people who own businesses will have an understanding that you can sit at a chair for 8 hours straight and be productive.
Mhm.
So, like I don't use anything I learned from school and what I do for a career now. I mean, I did
Mm.
before, but as a sociologist, you don't make a lot of money.
Understood there, that's for sure. Now, the program itself, yes, it is designed to help children, but also it is instrumental in allowing parents. I know that you can follow the progress on there and that they too can be actively involved. So it is something to which where the parents can be almost as heavily involved as the child, correct?
Correct. So the
Okay.
parents have a dashboard and they're able to see how far along their kid has gone. The way I sort of gamified the way the system works. So every time a kid completes something, they're given experience points.
Okay.
And so, if you were a gamer back in their mid 2000s with like Xbox Live, like you'd get ranked on how much you progress in the video game. So
Yeah.
I've taken that and put that in an educational model. So, one, the kid feels good. And a lot of it's dopamine, right? So for
Yeah.
example, like if you get a little badge and the computer goes ding, like that'll trigger your brain into shooting a little bit of dopamine onto your
Sure.
brain and that'll reinforce you to want to continue to do that thing. So I've turned that into a gamified system specifically. So every time a kid does perform well in some of the work that he's doing, that dopamine rush will continue to get them going. And the parents can pop in and take a look, whatever they want. And they can also choose between a structured learning system where it's just like every day it's a half hour, or
Yeah.
they can do what's called free learning and just a toggle of a switch. And they
Okay.
can spend all day if they wanted to, just going through all the work and all the subjects we have, and they can learn at their own pace. And
Okay.
the parents can pop in and take a look and make those changes whenever they want. Like if they feel that their fifth grader can do sixth grade math, they can go in there and change it to sixth grade.
Nice. Okay. Now, I was looking at the pricing structure you have set up. I know it's 49.99 a month. So the real question then becomes is, do you normally, when someone comes to you, recommend how long they should have it? Or, I mean, what's the guideline in terms of when is enough, so to speak?
I think that's up to the parent to kind of choose.
Sure.
Like my kids are a bunch of overachievers, so like for us, we go to the bookstore a couple times a week and they buy books, and but that's because I've inculcated that into their heads that like life is always continual learning. So
Yes.
for them, it's just go 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 go. So it all depends on the parent and how much they want to be involved or how much they want to have their child involved.
Okay.
But the idea is that I'm just giving them raw, unfiltered education with no bias that they can sit there and know that when they're done with reading, it'll be reading. When they're done with math, they'll learn math. And that's what I want to stick to. And I want to be able to give the child an experience that they are not currently getting at the grade schools. Like for example, like our assessments here in Tosa have gone up drastically. My
Sure.
house is now worth $210,000 more than it was before I got a letter in the mail a couple weeks ago.
Hmm.
And we spend like $12,000 already in taxes. But I don't see any of that return in my kids' education.
Yeah, that's a
And
big
that's really
problem.
frustrating. So, in the way we work, I mean, I'm very tech oriented. So, and because of the stuff we're doing with AI,
Hmm.
we're like, well, maybe we develop this program and the kids can learn from an AI and hopefully do well. I mean, the reason, like I told you earlier, like we're modeling this after the school in Texas who has taken a one of their classrooms and has gone full AI in it, and their kids' test scores have gone up 60%.
Yeah. And that says it all, I think. I mean, we can talk all day long about, hey, there's ways to improve this or this, but statistics don't lie. That's a big thing right there. Also, I love the fact that you say we have a 30-day money back guarantee. So if somebody's not happy and this isn't working, we're more than willing to be like, hey, let's do this or this. So let's say a parent watches this today and they're like, okay, is it a simple process for sign up? Do they just go to a website? Do they have to provide certain information?
No, they could just go to nuvolearn.com, they sign up, and then they register their kid, and they just pick the kid's grade that they're going into or
Okay.
are currently, and they start getting lessons right away.
Okay. Is this designed for homeschoolers more so, or would you say unilaterally all
It's
children?
unilaterally for everyone, specifically
Okay.
because my kids are part of public school now here in Tosa. And because I feel they're not getting the appropriate education, I'm using this to supplement what they're learning at school.
Gotcha. Now, would it be fair to say in a perfect world that you would like to see this sort of services being recommended by daycare centers or other homeschooling or schools in general? Do you think you'll be able to get them on board to be able to advocate for something like this?
I think it's important for them to do that at this point because, like for example, going back to Underwood, we've lost so many teachers in this transition from losing STEM and just kind of merging everything together
Yeah.
that like at some point the kids are going to have to do something else, especially in the very short term.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, you bet. And for your particular purposes, let's say I'm going to ask you this. How does your program distinguish itself among others of maybe of its kind, assuming that there are others out there that are similar to this?
So I come from education background. When I was the director of IT, I worked very closely with Renaissance Learning. And Renaissance Learning, they were right next door to Chicago Public Schools out in Chicago.
Yeah.
And when I moved here, when my kids first started at Underwood in 2016, they were actually using the same platform that I helped. They were using Renaissance Place, which is
Wow.
a curriculum that I helped put together with Renaissance Learning for our schools. So I do have a lot of extensive knowledge as to how curriculums work,
Mhm.
and I mean, I helped develop one. So I kind of took that same approach when I created Nuvolearn because the program itself, Renaissance Learning, was able to enable those kids in their schools to get such high grades to be able to complete college at the 95 percentile. And that's an insane number, specifically in Chicago,
Yeah.
specifically in underserved populations. For example, the at the end we ended up with five schools, and out of the five schools, three were 100% black and two were 100% Hispanic, and those kids all went to college.
Hmm.
That's huge.
Oh my God. That's putting it mildly, for gosh sakes. And as the days go by, too, and while people are trying to sort out the issues with schooling and who's doing what or not doing what, there's kids that are getting thrown into the cracks here and don't have resources. Um, if I were to ask you to tell everyone if they want to learn more about your company or more about Nuvolearn, tell me all the places you're on social media and otherwise.
So you can find us on nubigate.com or nubigate.com.
Yeah.
That's the main company that we run everything under. Through there, there's links to Nuvolearn, or you can just go to Nuvolearn directly at nuvolearn.com, and you can sign up, have your kids try it out. The nice thing about us being local is that if you want to see something on there, you can always reach out to me and find me or just call me. My phone number is on the website and let me know what you think of the program. And if it's anything that we can work on together or make it more accessible to kids, I am all up for feedback. Granted, I think it's great how it is now because I did
Mm.
structure it like we did at our schools.
Yeah.
And I am giving your kids busy work, but that's the same busy work that the parents went through and have enabled them to live well. If we keep on going down this path that the public school system here is going down. I don't
Mm.
see that being as much of a future for those kids because they're not learning at the same rate we did. So I'm trying to enable that back.
Yeah, education is so very important. And I think people you don't really appreciate it, I don't think, as much until you become an adult and you start getting into your career and realizing what life is all about. It's so fundamentally important that it's strong and structured and that we're giving our kids everything they need to get. So, A, thank you so much for building a tool that not only is solid and strong and also competent to be able to help our children, but keeping it without the politics involved, like you mentioned, keeping it straight to subject. I can't thank you enough for that and what you're doing for our community. And I appreciate you spending some time with me here today. Again, his name, Fernando, last name is spelled Topete. If you want to Google him, because he's on LinkedIn and otherwise, again, the company name is Newbie Gate, as well as the product itself, Nuvolearn.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.